The strange awakening. Marcus Vale woke with a sudden rush of cold fear. Something heavy rested across his chest. Warm. Soft. Breathing. For a long moment he did not move. His mind struggled to understand what his body already knew. His arms were trapped beneath something alive. Something that was definitely not human. The dim purple glow of alien crystals lit the room around him. Smooth walls curved like the inside of a seashell. Strange symbols shimmered faintly across the ceiling. Marcus tried to move his fingers. Nothing. Not because he was restrained, but because someone was lying on his arms. Slowly, carefully, Marcus tilted his head, and his brain nearly stopped working. Curled against his chest, sleeping peacefully, was the alien queen. Her silver skin shimmered softly in the violet light. Long strands of glowing hair spilled across Marcus's shoulder like liquid starlight. Delicate ridges framed her temples, marks of the Valari royal bloodline. Her head rested comfortably on his arms, like they were a pillow. Marcus swallowed hard, because 12 hours ago, this same queen had sentenced him to death. Before Marcus could speak, the queen stirred slightly. Without opening her glowing violet eyes, she whispered calmly, "You're awake." Marcus blinked. "How do you?" Her clawed finger gently touched his lips. Quiet, human. Her voice was soft, calm, almost amused. "The court sleeps for 2 more cycles," she said, "and I would prefer not to explain why I am sleeping on a condemned prisoner." Marcus lay frozen. His brain tried desperately to process the absurdity of the situation. Marcus Vale, human diplomat, official embarrassment of the Terran Council, currently serving as a royal pillow for an alien queen. How had things gone this wrong? The disaster in the throne hall. The answer began 16 hours earlier. Marcus had stood inside the Valari throne hall surrounded by beings who viewed humans as little more than primitive animals. The Valari were terrifyingly beautiful, tall, graceful, deadly. Their skin shimmered like polished silver. Their eyes glowed like broken pieces of amethyst. And they looked at humans with absolute contempt. At the center of the massive crystal chamber sat Queen Lysara the Eternal, ruler of 12 star systems. Her throne was grown from living crystal that pulsed with soft light. She looked bored. Dangerously bored. "The human delegation offers peaceful cooperation," Ambassador Elena Ruiz said carefully. Her voice echoed across the chamber. "Trade agreements. Shared scientific research. Mutual defense against the Zorath expansion. We decline." The Queen's voice cut through the hall like a blade. The Valari nobles laughed softly. It was the kind of laughter meant to humiliate. "Humans struggle to survive on their own world," one noble said mockingly. "And yet they offer protection." More laughter spread through the court. Marcus kept his eyes forward. His fists clenched behind his back. He had heard this tone before. Humans were weak. Humans were short-lived. Humans were fragile. Always the same words. Then the Queen's glowing eyes turned toward him. "Marcus Vale." His name echoed across the hall. "You have been silent." Ambassador Ruiz shot him a warning look. "Stay quiet." But Marcus felt something rising inside him. Anger. Not just for himself. For every human who had ever been dismissed as unimportant. "I have nothing new to add," Marcus said calmly. The room fell silent. "But I will say this." The Queen leaned forward slightly. Marcus met her glowing eyes. "You are not rejecting humanity because we are weak." Gasps echoed around the chamber. Marcus continued. "You are rejecting us because accepting help from a lesser species would hurt your pride." The silence became deadly. One noble stepped forward angrily. "Human. You dare." "I dare to tell the truth." Ambassador Ruiz whispered desperately. "Marcus, stop." But Marcus was done being quiet. "Humans are fragile," he continued. "Yes. We die quickly. We get sick. We make mistakes." He looked directly at the Queen. But we also solve problems faster than any species in the galaxy. The court erupted in furious whispers. Marcus finished with one final sentence. And one day, Queen Lysara, someone like us will save someone like you. The Queen's expression never changed, but her eyes sharpened. Cold. Calculating. Then she spoke. Marcus Vale. Yes, Your Majesty. You will be executed at sunrise. The cell beneath the palace. Marcus expected a dark prison. Instead, his cell was comfortable. Too comfortable. Smooth crystal walls. A soft sleeping platform. Even a wide window overlooking the twin suns of Valara Prime. It was almost peaceful. Marcus sat on the floor and stared at the sky. He thought about Earth. About his family. About his sister Lena. She had died 3 years earlier from a lung disease that doctors couldn't cure. The same weakness the Valari nobles had mocked. Humans were fragile. Marcus knew that. But humans also refused to give up. A quiet sound interrupted his thoughts. The cell door dissolved. Marcus looked up. And nearly stopped breathing. Queen Lysara stood alone in the doorway. No guards. No weapons. Just the most powerful alien ruler in the galaxy standing quietly in the hallway. Walk with me, she said. Marcus hesitated. Am I being executed early? The Queen gave a small smile. No. They walked through silent palace corridors. Eventually they stopped on a balcony overlooking glowing alien gardens. The Queen looked out at the stars. You were wrong earlier, she said calmly. Marcus blinked. About which part? All of it. She turned toward him. Our species is dying. Marcus frowned. What? For 3 centuries our birth rate has declined. Her voice remained calm. Within 50 generations, the Valari will be extinct. Marcus stared at her. That doesn't make sense. Your empire spans 12 systems. Yes. And none of it matters. For the first time Marcus saw something behind her royal mask. Exhaustion. Bone-deep exhaustion. I rejected your alliance to protect humanity, she said quietly. Marcus frowned. Protect us from what? From watching us collapse. Silence stretched between them. Then the Queen asked a strange question. Tell me something, human. Marcus nodded. When humans know their lives are short, why do they fight so hard? Marcus didn't answer immediately. Then he said something simple. Because every moment matters. The Queen studied him carefully. Then she made a decision. Stay here, she said. Marcus blinked. As a prisoner. As an advisor. Marcus laughed softly. You want a human advisor. I want someone who tells the truth. The Queen stepped closer. And someone who is not afraid of dying. Marcus looked out at the alien stars. Then he nodded. All right. But Marcus Vale had no idea that his decision would soon change the fate of 2 entire civilizations, and eventually lead to the moment when he woke up frozen, with the alien queen sleeping peacefully on his arms. A secret that could destroy a throne. Marcus Vale had expected many strange things when he agreed to stay in the alien palace. He had not expected to become the Queen's secret advisor. For the first few weeks, his existence was hidden from almost everyone in the Valari Empire. Officially, Marcus Vale had been exiled to a distant moon. In reality, he lived in a quiet wing of the palace close to Queen Lysara's chambers. The Queen called for him every evening after the royal court finished its endless rituals and politics. They would walk through glowing gardens filled with plants that hummed softly in the dark. Or they would sit in her private library surrounded by thousands of years of Valari history. And every night the Queen asked Marcus strange questions. Questions no Valari noble would ever ask. What do humans do when they argue with someone they love? Marcus blinked the first time she asked that. We talk, he said slowly. Even when angry. Especially when angry. The Queen considered this like it was an alien concept. Among the Valari, disagreements between nobles often lasted centuries. "Another question," she said one evening. Marcus sighed dramatically. "I'm starting to feel like a science experiment." The Queen almost smiled. "When humans know they will die someday, how do they live without fear?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Simple." Lysara waited. "We don't." That answer fascinated her. Because the Valari were nearly immortal. They could live for thousands of years. Yet their civilization was slowly fading. Birth rates falling. Creativity disappearing. Passion fading like a dying star. Marcus had begun to suspect something strange. The Valari were powerful, brilliant, ancient. But they had forgotten something very important. How to change. Humans, on the other hand, changed constantly. And that difference would soon become very important. The day everything went wrong. For almost a month, their secret remained hidden. Then everything collapsed. Marcus was walking through the palace gardens with the Queen late one evening. They had been arguing about something surprisingly serious. "Your people are too cautious," Marcus said. "Your people are reckless," Lysara replied calmly. "That's because we don't have thousands of years to waste thinking about problems." The Queen crossed her arms. "And yet humans constantly create new problems." Marcus opened his mouth to respond, and suddenly froze. Because voices echoed from the nearby corridor. Valari nobles. Marcus's eyes widened. Lysara reacted instantly. She grabbed his arm and pulled him behind a massive crystal pillar. But it was too late. 3 Valari nobles stepped into the garden. And one of them saw Marcus. The noble's glowing eyes widened. A human. The garden went silent. The tallest noble stepped forward slowly. Lord Threx. One of the most powerful and dangerous nobles in the Empire. His voice was ice cold. "Your Majesty." He looked from Marcus back to the Queen. "You executed this creature." Lysara stood perfectly still. "I changed my mind." The nobles looked horrified. "You kept a human alive inside the royal palace." Threx's voice grew darker. "Have you lost your judgment?" Marcus expected the Queen to become angry. Instead she simply said one sentence. "He is my advisor." The nobles stared at her like she had announced the sky was falling. "A human advisor," one whispered. Threx looked at Marcus with open hatred. This creature insulted the Valari throne. Marcus shrugged. "You insulted humanity first." The garden erupted into furious shouting. "You see, Your Majesty." Threx snapped. "Even now the animal shows disrespect." Marcus stepped forward. "Actually, I'm about to save your empire." That got everyone's attention. Even the Queen. Threx laughed coldly. "A primitive human will save the Valari." Marcus nodded calmly. "Because humans do something your species forgot how to do." "And what is that?" Threx sneered. Marcus smiled. "We improvise." The message from the stars. Before the argument could continue, the palace lights suddenly turned red. A deep alarm echoed through the entire structure. Every Valari noble froze. Lysara's expression changed instantly. "What is happening?" A guard rushed into the garden. His voice shook. "Your Majesty, the outer defense fleets are reporting an emergency." Lysara moved immediately. "Report." "The Zorath Armada has entered the system." Silence fell across the garden. Marcus noticed something strange. The Valari nobles looked afraid. Not cautious. Not angry. Afraid. "How large?" the Queen asked. The guard hesitated. 3,000 warships. Marcus blinked. "That's bad." Threx turned toward the Queen. "They have never attacked with this much force." Lysara's mind was already racing. The defense fleets. Already engaging. Another message arrived seconds later. The guard's voice trembled. "First defense fleet destroyed." The garden went silent again. Marcus slowly looked around. The Valari were panicking. Not one of them had expected a full invasion. And suddenly Marcus understood something terrifying. The Valari had become so powerful. They had forgotten how to fight desperate wars. Humans never forgot that lesson. Marcus spoke quietly. "You're going to lose." The nobles glared at him. "How dare you?" Marcus cut them off. "No offense, but you're thinking like immortals." Lysara looked at him carefully. "Explain." Marcus pointed at the sky. 3,000 ships means they're not here to fight. They're here to wipe you out completely. Threx snarled. "The Valari fleets are superior." Marcus shook his head. "That doesn't matter." Everyone stared at him. Marcus took a deep breath. Then he said the most dangerous sentence of his life. "You're fighting this war the wrong way." Lysara stepped closer. "What would humans do?" Marcus smiled slowly. "Something the Zorath will never expect. The dangerous human idea." The War Council gathered only minutes later. Massive holograms filled the room showing the incoming Zorath fleet. Thousands of ships. Moving like a storm across space. Valari commanders spoke quickly. "We must deploy the second defense fleet. Our planetary shields will hold for several cycles. Reinforcements from the outer colonies." Marcus watched them carefully. Then he sighed. "You're still thinking like Valari." Threx snapped angrily. "And how does a human think?" Marcus walked toward the hologram. He pointed directly at the enemy fleet. "Humans don't win wars with power." He tapped the display. "We win wars with stupid ideas." The room went silent. Lysara tilted her head. "Explain." Marcus grinned. "Simple." He pointed at the palace window. "Let them think they've already won." Threx looked confused. "You are suggesting surrender." Marcus shook his head. "I'm suggesting a trap." The Queen studied him carefully. And for the first time since the invasion began, a small spark of hope appeared in her glowing eyes. Because humans were famous for one thing across the galaxy: turning impossible situations into ridiculous victories. And Marcus Vale was about to prove exactly why. A plan that sounded completely insane. The Valari War Council chamber was silent. Thousands of enemy ships glowed red on the holographic display. The Zorath Armada moved closer every second like a dark storm swallowing the stars. Valari commanders spoke in urgent voices, suggesting defensive formations and energy shield strategies. But Marcus Vale stood quietly at the center of the room. Watching. Listening. Then he shook his head. "You're still doing it," Marcus said. Several commanders turned toward him with irritation. "Doing what, human?" Lord Threx asked coldly. Marcus pointed at the hologram. "You're fighting like an ancient empire." Lysara watched him carefully. "And that is a problem." Marcus nodded. "The Zorath studied you for centuries." He gestured toward the incoming fleet. "They know exactly how you fight." One commander scoffed. "Our tactics are flawless." Marcus smiled slightly. "That's exactly why you're going to lose." The room erupted with angry murmurs. Threx slammed his clawed hand on the table. "You dare!" Lysara raised her hand. Silence returned instantly. "Explain," the Queen said calmly. Marcus stepped closer to the hologram. "Humans survive because we do things that make no sense." The commanders looked confused. Marcus continued. "When humans are losing a war, we break the rules." Lysara leaned forward slightly. "And your suggestion?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Turn off the planetary shields." The entire room exploded with outrage. "That is madness. You would expose the capital to bombardment. Human stupidity." Threx glared at Marcus. "You are suggesting we invite destruction." Marcus shrugged. "Exactly." The Queen's glowing eyes narrowed. Continue. Marcus pointed toward the massive Zorath fleet. They expect resistance. He zoomed in on the hologram. They expect shields. They expect fleets. But if the shields drop? Lysara finished his thought slowly. They will assume we surrendered. Marcus nodded. Right. The room grew quiet again. Marcus's voice became serious. And when they move closer to occupy the planet? He tapped another part of the hologram. They fly directly into our trap. The trap only humans would build. 3 hours later the capital planet looked completely defenseless. The massive Valari shields faded. Defense fleets retreated. Orbital weapons powered down. From space, the planet appeared helpless. Inside the palace, Valari commanders watched the enemy fleet approach with growing fear. Lord Threx paced angrily. If this fails, human. Marcus leaned against the wall. It won't. The Queen stood beside the observation window staring at the stars. Your trap is ready. Marcus nodded. Every human engineer on Earth would be proud. Lysara looked at him. You have great confidence for someone facing extinction. Marcus smiled. Humans are used to extinction threats. That answer confused the Valari. For them, extinction was unimaginable. For humans, it was a normal chapter in history. The alarm sounded again. Enemy fleet entering planetary orbit. Thousands of massive Zorath warships moved closer. Their dark shapes filled the sky like a swarm of metal predators. One commander spoke nervously. They are preparing landing formations. Marcus nodded. Perfect. Lysara studied his expression. You are smiling. Marcus folded his arms. Because now comes the fun part. The Zorath fleet moved lower. Hundreds of ships entered low orbit preparing to occupy the Valari capital. Then Marcus whispered one quiet command. Now. Across the entire planet. Thousands of hidden machines activated. Machines the Valari had never imagined. Because they were not Valari designs. They were human inventions. Experimental gravity engines. The planet suddenly trembled. A massive invisible wave exploded outward from the surface. Space itself twisted. The Zorath fleet froze in place. Then chaos erupted. Ships collided violently. Navigation systems failed instantly. Gravity bent like a broken mirror. One commander shouted in shock. The enemy fleet cannot stabilize. Marcus grinned. Humans call this a gravity trap. Lysara watched in amazement. Zorath warships spun helplessly. Some crashed into each other. Others were pulled violently into the planet's atmosphere. Entire battle groups shattered within minutes. The Valari commanders stared in disbelief. The most powerful invasion fleet in the galaxy was being destroyed by planetary gravity distortions. Lord Threx whispered in shock. That is impossible. Marcus shrugged. Not if you're desperate enough to try stupid ideas. The moment humanity changed the galaxy. Within 20 minutes the battle was over. Thousands of Zorath ships floated as broken debris around the planet. The survivors fled the system in panic. Inside the War Council chamber, no one spoke. Lysara slowly turned toward Marcus. You defeated them. Marcus scratched the back of his head. Well, technically the planet did. Threx stared at the human like he was seeing a completely new species. That plan violated every known law of military doctrine. Marcus nodded happily. Exactly. Lysara walked toward him slowly. Her glowing eyes studied his face. Your species is fragile. Marcus laughed. Very. You live short lives. Yep. You are physically weaker than most species in the galaxy. Marcus nodded. All true. The Queen tilted her head. And yet. She looked at the shattered enemy fleet in orbit. You are terrifying. Marcus smiled softly. That's what happens when you grow up knowing life is short. Lysara considered that for a long moment. Then she said something unexpected. Perhaps that is why your species survives. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Because we're crazy. The Queen's lips curved slightly. Because you refuse to accept limits. The Valari commanders slowly began to understand something important. For centuries they had seen humans as weak. But weakness had created something dangerous. Creativity, risk, innovation. Things the ancient Valari had forgotten. Lysara turned toward the stars again. Then she spoke quietly. Marcus Vale. Yes, Your Majesty. You once said humans might save someone like me. Marcus nodded. I remember. The Queen's voice softened. Perhaps you already have. Marcus looked at the shattered invasion fleet. Then he looked back at the alien Queen. And suddenly he realized something. This strange partnership was only the beginning. Because one unpredictable human and one exhausted alien Queen had just proven something to the entire galaxy. Never underestimate a species that only has a short time to live. Because those species learn how to do something very dangerous. They learn how to win.